Give me your MAF only, your poorly tuned, your slow masses, yearning to be faster, and I will transform them into legends.
Hello, my tuning friends. Let us talk about transient fueling today. A lot has been said about it and how to tune it, what it is, what it does. And I think there's a much easier way to tune it. So let's talk about that. All right, so just some general prerequisites. You do need to tune your virtual VE for steady state. That does not mean copy and paste full percent or half percent calc coefficients and end up with some ripply, wrinkly, raggedy looking thing. No, it needs to be smooth. It needs to be accurate and representative of it. So just because you think it's tuned doesn't mean that it actually is. So please make sure that you know how to do it and tune that for steady state. I have tons of videos on that using Virtual VE Assistant and so on. So I'm not going to go over that too much. The prediction coefficients, I would say return those back to stock. In my opinion, nobody knows what they do or what they control or anything like that. I know some people have messed with them to various degrees of success, but I still think it's a little bit, I don't know, uncharted territory. I would not rely on that. I would encourage you to return them to stock. You also will need a wideband O2 sensor for this as well. And I would also highly encourage you to watch the last video I did, The Secret Life of Gasoline, which kind of reveals how gasoline actually gets into the engine. It is not a straightforward, well, I just sprayed the injector and gas just goes in. That's not at all. There's lots of twists and turns, and it will help you understand the mechanisms that go behind all of this stuff. All right, so we will be building some charts in the VCM scanner. These are the filters that we're going to use. You will need some adjustments to here, and we'll talk about that in a second. But so if we look at this, we're going to look at our map sensor, accelerator pedal, and then our commanded EQ ratio. And then how we're going to tune these or adjust the filters is going to be this number of milliseconds and then this slope. So basically we're saying in 250 milliseconds, how steep or, well, this for tip in, how steep is the map signal going up? And then for tip out, it's going to be how steep does it go down? So we'll do a live demo and we'll play around with those numbers. And then part of that is we're going to be visually looking at how these filters interact with the data in the scanner. So I did already cover this in this video here, building visual filters. We will go back over that again in this video when I do the live demo. But I do encourage you to watch this video. And then all of that is going to culminate into two charts. We're going to have an impact gain and an evap gain. All right, now we've jumped into the scanner and we need to build a chart. So come in here, I have a tab for fuel miscellaneous and I already built a little header here. So let's go ahead, right click, graphs layout, hit the plus sign, add table. And what we want to chart is the EQ error. So I'll just type in error and hit the gear to limit it to the results that I have. Here's EQ ratio error. We will call this impact gain. And I like pretty colors. I don't know how some of you guys go through life without having colors in your charts. I must have the pretty shiny colors. Now, here's the other thing. This is the easy part here. We need to figure out our breakpoints. And in general, our chart that we build in the scanner has to mirror and match exactly what the data structure is in the tune file. That's going to be HP tuners, probably any tuning platform, right? We can't make random charts and data. How do we apply that back to the tune? So we're going to go over to the tune, and on the fuel transient tab, we have impact, and it's the gain that we're going to use. I have tried in the past um, adjusting this like I would build a chart for intake valve temperature and manifold pressure and, end up with all kinds of wonky stuff in here. And maybe at first that seemed to sort of work, but then the next time you drive, it's all over the place. I've never been able to make any of this work. So the gain, though, seems highly effective. So we're going to go down here to gain, and it's mass airflow in grams per second. So I'm going to right click, column axis, and I'm going to copy these labels to grab these breakpoints. Now, on my car, the MAF is physically removed, so I'm running in speed density. I don't have the ability to do MAF airflow, so I'm going to use the dynamic airflow. I could probably use the same or virtual VE, the VE airflow, and get the same result, but we'll just use dynamic. And I paste that in there, and now I have this nice little chart with pretty colors as well. Now, there's one thing, the secret is we need to filter out only the non-transient. So steady state we want to get rid of. So where did my filters go? So I have here, this is impact gain for tip in. I'm going to copy this. We're going to go back in here and we're going to pop that in there. And now you can see that we definitely are getting some lean spots. So when we come over here, we are going to look at chart versus time. And I may remove this guy and we will instead, well, we'll convert this over in a second. Let's get rid of this guy and maybe we'll remove some other stuff. So well, let me show you what I mean first. So we'll go to Tools, Math Parameters, and we're going to create a custom one in here. Oh, tip in filter I already have. Let me delete this out and we'll just start fresh. So the filters that I put in, you're going to paste this in here. However, there's got to be one simple change. We have to put the whole thing in parentheses. So I'm going to go to the beginning, put open parentheses, close parentheses, and then equals 1. So all this is saying is if all of these conditions match, we are going to return a number 1 to tell us on, right? Think of binary, 0 off, 1 is on. So at this point, we are going to look at the impact of this milliseconds, 250 milliseconds, and a slope factor of 10. So we'll come in here and we're going to get rid of this guy. And we'll go down to our user defined and we'll do tip in filter. And I like to change this to 1.5. That way I can see that this whole section from here to here is included. At this point, I'm going to go to charts layout and I'll probably move the EQ ratio. Well, we'll move both of them. The commanded down probably would have been easier to move everything else. Let's get rid of knock retard. We'll get rid of accel pedal. We'll leave throttle, but we're going to convert throttle over to map since that's what our filter is using. Some guys, some tuners are going to argue that you should use TPS rather than map because the TPS is a much faster reacting. Like it comes first rather than the map. So if we go and look at our tune file though, the factory is qualifying on a delta map of 1 kPa or a delta TPS of 1%. You can experiment with both. I don't know that this is super duper critical, but some of the hardcore guys are going to say all transients should be based off of throttle position. So now we're in here, and here's what we want to do. So this, we're basically saying in 250 milliseconds, is the map signal climbing at least 10? All right. And what we want to do is make sure that this box is capturing all of these transients. So you can see that we have a tip out coming down through here, and then we have a strong tip in point. And this is about perfect, right? You can see that, well, we do get a little bit of a rich spot here, but we are capturing a majority of a lean spot here for tip in. So we kind of want to just go in and look at all of these spots in the log file to make sure that we are capturing the appropriate data. So for the most part, this is pretty good. Both of those look good. Let's jump to maybe a different spot. We're not capturing a whole lot of tip in events. And like this one's a mismatch, right? We have a tip in And at this point, it's saying, hey, you're super rich, and it's never going to be reporting this really lean spot. And over here, you can see an interesting thing. It looks like we tip in. It starts to go lean, or it's heading to lean, and then it goes rich. And then we keep tipping in, or maybe slightly less tipping in, and then it goes lean again. So we can adjust this. Let's just take a note. This is 11.4. So we'll go to layout, no, tools, math parameters. And all of this is covered in that other video I did, filter like a pro or ace pro or something. I don't know. So let's change this. So maybe we'll make it less selective. We'll say maybe 10 is too steep. How about we do 5 just for kicks? And maybe we'll broaden this. Maybe we'll say 450 milliseconds. Now, once I make those changes, unfortunately, this doesn't update. So we need to go back in here and force it just by reselecting it. So we'll do tip in again, tip in filter, and change that to 1.5. And so now you can see that we have a lot more generous selection for these, right? We're feeding more data into that chart that we just built. So let's take a look at a few more. Now, does this look like a tip-in event? The map is going up, and then at this one point we kind of randomly go up. But just looking in general, sure, if we zoom out, we're kind of trending a little bit rich, go lean, and then we start to stay a little bit rich. But I don't know that this would really be something that we would want in the chart. So this is in essence of what I'm telling you of you kind of need to go through and look at the signals and see, do we want to capture this? Does it make sense? So maybe we'll go in here, math parameters, and we'll back off a little bit. Where is tip in? Where's that tip? Here we go. So how about we say maybe not 450, maybe we'll do 350, and we'll be a little bit more selective. We'll do 8. And we have to force it to refresh. So we're just going to select it like so. And then of course we have to do this because it's annoying. So there you go. This looks like a pretty solid tip in, but we don't really see the signal changing too much. I'm not going to bore you with all of this, all of these settings, or going back and forth and looking at all of these things. But that's kind of for you to decide your comfort area. We go back to, dang it, I always lose these. So that's the tip in. I'm going to change this back to, well, we'll do 500. Oops. 500 milliseconds, which is half a second, and we'll put that to 10. And we also had a tip out filter, and I have this also for 500 and then -10 for the slope. So let's do that. Let's go charts layout. We'll do tip in. Let's refresh this one. If I could spell tip in correctly. Getting there. There we go. And 1.5. Let's add another filter here. So we'll call this, we're just going to go to tip out. You're seeing I'm not a very good typer. We'll make this one whatever color that is. And so now we have the tip out event. So to me, this isn't good. Like I'd want to capture this downward slope, this tip out, not this long slope here. This is definitely a good tip out event. We have a pretty strong slope and then we go lean. So just in general, understand tip in. The fuel injector sprays a lot of fuel. A lot of that fuel impacts the port wall and it sticks. It stays liquid and or doesn't vaporize or it doesn't make its way into the cylinder. So that's what causes the lean event. You tip in, fuel is sprayed, but not all of it goes in. Tip out, you close the throttle, and then all of that lingering fuel that's stuck to the port in the presence of that low pressure vaporizes much more easily. So you have a rich tip out event. That is the basics of what's going on here with tip in, tip out. So we'll go in here, we'll say graphs layout. We're going to say add table, copy this guy, or not copy this. And what do we need actually? We need to mirror this. And the evap gain is RPMs. So column axis, copy labels, go in here and just add the ripums. Oh, wait, wrong spot. We still want AFR error, see? Through the magic of editing, this won't be edited out. We want our PQ error. 2 decimals is just fine to me. We'll do 10 and -10. There we go. And then we need our filter. So you'll notice these filters are pretty much the same. The only difference is this is greater than 10 and this is less than -10. Otherwise, they are the same. So we'll copy this and put it in here. Now, uh, whatever, we'll do tip out gain. Now, whatever you do on those visual filters, as far as the 500 milliseconds or 10 or -10, obviously you would need to transfer those over here to these filters as well. So for making this video less tedious than it already is, I'm going to leave 250 and 10. I do encourage you to experiment. Don't just blindly use what I have. So now we get a situation like this. Right click, select the whole thing, right click, copy, go into here. We're going to go to impact gain and we're going to do right click, paste special, multiply by percent. And we'll go to tip out, right click, copy, go here, right click, paste special, multiply by percent. Now, a few things. The transient, especially the impact, I don't know how much the evap is going to make a difference, but when you go to start your engine, transients are used. So if you start making a lot of changes in these lower cells, you may have introduced new starting problems. So just be aware that that's the case. Now, if we look at this, we can see we're starting to get some trends in here. Okay, so this spike, and this is kind of goes back to what I was telling you in that very first slide about watching that video about the secret life of gasoline. It's not a straightforward thing, especially when you have valve overlap, natural EGR effect, reversion, etc., and so on. So I don't know that it's important to make this super smooth. So if you want to, you certainly can say, maybe I do want to smooth this out a little bit. That's fine. That's up to you. You can kind of experiment with it, but at least know now that you do have a system um, with using the gain to kind of figure out what's going on. And same thing with evap. If you want to smooth this out, this obviously looks like an outlier, but I don't know, 1600 RPMs. Between 16 and 2000, there's a lot of reversion that's happening inside your LS. It looks like it wants to be connected. And, same token, maybe you want to do this. So it's up to you. Again, you can experiment and see how this works and the impact, no pun intended, of these changes. So I would encourage you to set everything back to stock except for the gains. Play with that. The other thing that I've heard is manifold volume. I've doubled mine from stock, but I don't know. I haven't seen that there's too much of a change in that at all. So you can play with that, maybe return that back to stock if you want to, but just another one of those hearsay things that I have not seen a whole lot of actual real world improvements. So I hope you found this helpful. And if you did, please hit the buttons below. It helps out the channel. It's free, I mean, come on, help me out, guys. Anyway, do these things and hopefully you will learn and be better. And if you are, I will see you in the winner's circle, my dudes. Later.